Welcome to Dr. Akmal Makhdum's YouTube channel. He is a psychiatrist, author, and a social commentator. Today we're continuing Forgotten Philosophies and we're looking at the post-Socratic philosophy of Stoicism. So what is it you would like to discuss about Stoicism today, Dr. Akmal?
Stoicism comes out of the Socratic thought, and as we delineated philosophy by this line that separated pre-Socratics and the post-Socratics. So Socrates is the line that divides them. And we discussed that the pre-Socratics had a philosophy that looked at man and God and intimate interplay of fate, nature, power, and gods were constantly interfering in man's destiny. And so when Socrates comes, what he does is he actually brings the whole thing down to the human being and what human being can define, can understand. He started talking about virtue, courage, love, knowledge, reason, and the collective good, the greater good, etc. But he never made declarative statements. He never said that this is what is good, this is what is wise, this is what is appropriate and not appropriate. What he said was that whether a human being knows himself, what is beauty, what is art, what is love, what is decency, what is compassion. We all think that we know all that. And the way Socratic method was that he kept on asking questions of people. Well, what do you think is love? Or what do you value in life? And what do you mean by wisdom? And when people said we would like to have a good life, and what he said was, so what do you mean by good? And they said, which is decent. So, okay, define decent. So Socrates never said that he knew anything, and he is known to be extremely wise, maybe the wisest person at that time on earth. But he always said and claimed that he didn't know anything. Now, out of that, there were various streams of philosophies that came out. And that, I believe, is also the post-civil war between the Athenian state, the Peloponnesian Wars. That went on for 3 decades, destroyed the whole of Greek city-states, ultimately loss of liberty of Athens. Then, of course, Socrates, the great mind, the familiar figure, the wise man, loved and hated, gets executed. And out of that disorder comes Plato and Aristotle and so on, and they want to create order and they talk of all the grand things. But there were other philosophies that came out.
Okay.
And one philosophy was Stoicism. Now, this actually takes its origin from Zeno of Crete. Zeno of Crete was a rich merchant, and he was traveling and he loses everything and he gets shipwrecked and he lands in Athens and he is totally impoverished, and then he somehow gets into the academy of Socrates and wants to look at life, and then looks at life in a way where he suggests that one can and one should deal with life with a degree of self-control, of self-reliance, and a degree of dignity.
Right.
So then what you have is that Stoicism actually brings out a degree of values, and this philosophy is a great equalizer. Because when you look at many important Stoics, you see on the one hand Epictetus, the, the slave Stoic, and a great Stoic. Then on the other hand, you see Marcus Aurelius, the emperor, the Stoic. And then you see the artist, dramatist, Seneca. So the two very rich men and one a slave. But they're all Stoics. So what Stoicism suggests is that we can only look at what we can control. We should only focus on things which are in our control. We have been dealt a hand by nature, God, providence, circumstances, and we end up a slave. So once we end up as slaves, how do we make the most out of that existence?
Right.
How do we become honest and do the maximum good? How do we look at our own character, our own virtue, our own wisdom, our own knowledge? How do we look at helping others?
Okay, and that's very relevant in the current climate today, what we're
Yes.
looking at. Because, I mean, from online, what it says, the different beliefs of Stoicism are the good things include the cardinal virtues, wisdom, justice, courage, and self discipline. The bad things include the opposite of these virtues, namely the four vices: folly, injustice, cowardice, and indulgence.
That's correct. And so what happens is in Stoics, they are just and honest to themselves. So what they suggest is that there are these standards, and these standards are equally applicable on the slave, the great artist, and the emperor. And whereas Epictetus, the slave, is looking at the best way that he can be honest to what he is, what his station is, how he can improve it without creating discord in society and pain to others. And then on the other extreme, you have the great emperor Marcus Aurelius. He is a person who exercised self-discipline. Unlike Nero and Caligula, he's a man who is not unjust. He's a man of great wisdom, but great self-control. He looks at people and accepts them the way they are. And he forgives them. And he's honest. And what he says is, and the Stoicism suggests is, that it is not what things do to you. It is how you respond to events.
Right. But then there's the argument that Stoicism is inimical to freedom. Is that how you said that? Yeah.
Well, the thing
Because
is
we cannot
that,
control everything.
Yeah. Why I do not think it is inimical to
Sorry.
freedom is that Stoicism requires a degree of self-discipline. What Stoicism does is does not distinguish between the master and the slave. The slave could be a greater human being compared to the master. And the master could be far inferior. So what it does is, and this resonates in a way with Islam in a way, it resonates with Christianity in a way, where the meek inheriting the earth and giving due to the Caesar and what is giving due to God.
Yeah.
So that is where virtue comes in.
Okay.
Because Stoic is a virtuous person and his virtue is greater good.
Okay. But then you have Sartre saying that what does he say? He says that Stoicism is unable to work the magic of emotion.
the thing is, what Stoicism does is that it tries to deal with emotion.
Okay.
Now, when you look at the the writings of Marcus Aurelius, you see that he is ridden with emotion.
Mhm.
He is dealing with sorrow, he's dealing with grief, he's dealing with failure. But what he does is that he doesn't blame other people. Because he believes that it is his job, he has to do the best. What he does is his decision and his control. It has to be informed, it has to be knowledgeable, it has to be reflective, and it has to be wise.
Yeah.
But whatever he does is his decision and his responsibility, and he has to do his best. So when he does this,
Yeah.
he deals with his emotions. He does not let his emotion overtake him. And that's what Stoic does. And if you see that the modern rational emotive therapy, cognitive behavior therapy are all Stoicism based.
Okay. Because even Nietzsche,
Uh-huh.
he also was a bit wary. Because he said that he calls Stoics extraordinary stage plays and self-deluders who choose to see things falsely.
Yes, but
Because it's an evasion of, because you're having a human reaction to events that you cannot control.
That is correct. And so what he does is, but what the Stoics do is they actually look at those reactions, they try to control them, and they try to put the responsibility of those actions, whatever is in their control, onto themselves.
Okay.
So give you an example. A Stoic would say that tomorrow, whatever happens is not in my control.
Mm-hmm.
I need to look at today. I need to live in this moment. And I have finite time. I need to look at my loved ones. I need to look at what I want to do now. It has to be virtuous. So it is not greed. Because, when you have the virtues, you have the vices. You have the good and the bad in Stoicism. So courage, wisdom, love, affection, humanity, decency are all on one side.
Yeah. That's great. Actually, to be honest, the more more looking into Sartre and Nietzsche as well, they're obviously brilliant. And I cannot say anything.
Yeah.
But it seems that, that's more, the Stoicism actually is a much more practical approach. And like you said, therapies these days are based on Stoicism and, mindfulness, CBT, not crying over things you cannot control.
That's it.
And having a control over the things you cannot control.
Gestalt therapy,
Yeah.
here and now.
Yeah.
The whole yoga thing.
It takes away the victim mentality.
It takes away the victim mentality, and it also takes away the helplessness mentality. Because the person who is worried about things which are not in his control is constantly projecting his own helplessness onto the others. Oh, it's so dreary, it is so dark, oh goodness. So the point is that Stoicism, in my estimation, is a great philosophy, which is, you see threads of that and deeper threads of it in Christianity, in Islam, in equality, in purpose of life, in being good. A Stoic is not unhappy when it is in his power to lay down his own life for the greater good. So that is what the difference is. So, you have the Sartre's emotional Nero and the Caligula, but you have the Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, a guy who won't kill and he won't indulge his lusts, who would control himself, who would not punish people and execute hundreds if he loses a battle.
That's wonderful. And also we have these examples in real life. I mean, I can think of, and the way you've described it, I think of my mother. She was very stoic. Exactly. Great. And on that note, thank you so much. If you've liked this video, click the like button, subscribe, and share. If you have any comments, let us know and we will answer you. Thank you so much, and we will see you soon.